Dear all, we welcome you to this presentation of the Spiritual School of the Golden Rosy Cross. This is the first session in a cycle in a course of 3 lessons, 3 explorations. So that we all understand what we mean by a course of lessons, we will explain the methodology involved. The fundamental purpose of all knowledge is that it has a theoretical aspect and an applied aspect. The theoretical aspects builds on prior knowledge and applies across all fields. It asks the audience to engage in a high level of abstraction, as theories strive to create models that are as broad and inclusive as possible, yet not tailored to any one individual. Applied courses, which is the case for the one we are about to propose to you, are courses that seek to present a method that we can apply in our day-to-day lives. So what is this method, you may ask? The method proposed by the Spiritual School of the Golden Rosy Cross aims, amongst other things, to enable the human consciousness to define itself, achieve self-awareness, and from there use free will to make decisions. Unlike scientific or academic disciplines, which rely on both theory and practical application, the focus here is on ourselves, the human being, as the object of study. For this course to be effective, it is important that participants have some personal experience relevant to the path of human liberation that we will explore. We are confident that our audience already lives and experiences aspects similar to those we will discuss. However, there is a challenge. There are no shortcuts to advancing in the process of self-awareness. Immediate realization is not possible, and progress depends on understanding how this process unfolds. This is the purpose of our course, which will unfold over 3 sessions. The first session will explore self-knowledge. The second will examine free will. And the third and final session will focus on transformative action. So friends, let's delve into the first of our presentations on self-knowledge, and let's then begin our applied course, whose object is, as I said before, the human being. So the human being carries within an archetype, the sacred triangle of thinking, feeling, and acting. Each of us expresses a predominant characteristic. Some are more attuned to feeling, others to thinking, and others to the force of will. To enable the transformation of consciousness that this course proposes, we must recognize the potential within the fundamental aspects of human nature: thinking, feeling, and acting. It's essential to approach these not only in an integrated manner, but also from a disruptive perspective. For this reason, the central theme of the course is the triangle of disruption. What is disruption? It is a break in continuity, a nonlinear rupture in the old structure that makes way for the immediate emergence of a new one. Why is this necessary, you may ask? Because we live in fluid times, rapidly changing times that demand constant adaptation. When faced with personal or existential experiences, we cannot afford to delay moving forward to the next stage of development. The foundation of the triangle of disruption lies in the urgency and intensity with which we must act. Each insight or realization should be immediately followed by action, in a continuous cycle of perception and accomplishment. In this first part, we will talk about these first 2 stages, or one that unfolds into 2, which is self-knowledge together with longing. But first, let us move to the second slide to revisit the method of this transformative triangle, which begins with longing. Longing is at the center. This yearning for liberation is not the possession of the human being. It is a transcendental element which arises in the human being through what we call the divine plane of existence, the plane of the spirit. It's like a new sun that radiates within the human being, which seeks to illuminate and take the human being out of his state of torpor, this state of sleep, of living a life conditioned by events. Human beings often allow external events to shape their inner lives. However, this process proposes a different approach. Individuals must self-determine. Each person has the capacity to shape their own life, and in doing so, influence the world around them. This transformative element does not originate from the individual himself. It actually wells up from the divine light, the divine force, which we sometimes call the action of the brotherhood of life, which awakens in the human being the yearning for liberation and seeks ways to enter the human consciousness. This force awakens the longing for liberation within us and seeks to enter the human consciousness. This is where the task of the human being begins, to connect an idea of self-knowledge that, if carried out completely, leads to self-surrender and produces a new state of life, a new action, and not simply a reaction. Briefly, we will present each of these vertices of the triangle throughout this course in these 3 sessions. Today we will explore the yearning in more details. What is the essence of this? It is important to be clear, since it is a paradigm shift also for the pupils and members of the Golden Rosy Cross, and can still be subject of confusion. What does disruption mean in practice and in simple way? It means, as it stands here, an instantaneous change, an immediate change. We have a lot of power for inner transformation within us. And when that power is activated by the longing, as the first bullet point on the left indicates, the longing does not generate elevated, wonderful feelings, no. It generates a force, a powerful fire caused by an inner restlessness that leads us to move towards self-knowledge. But this self-knowledge is not, and let's explore a little more, merely a self-evaluation. Who am I? How am I? What was my childhood like? What is my story? As if we were in a house of mirror. No, that's not it. It is merely to unmask oneself. The idea of a mask here is very powerful. As in masked balls, people wear masks in life. One mask at work, another one in affective life, another in relationships in general. And so to seek a false harmony, a false peace. But here we refer to the knowledge we have of ourselves by unmasking ourselves, not unmasking other, but ourselves, to the essence of manipulation that we carry out in our inner world, all the self-deception that we generate within ourselves. Once this stage is accomplished in this disruption, in this instantaneous change, the need for self-surrender arises, which means, yes, a choice for transformation. And this choice of transformation leads us to the fundamental action that will actually generate this disruption. This entire process occurs in an instant. Although we present it didactically in a sequence, in reality it unfolds within a fraction of a moment. This is the key to the whole dynamic, the instant, the precise moment whose momentum generates the force for transformation. In this way, instantaneous change also takes place within the inner world. We have already seen in a general way the idea, the foundation, the object of this empirical course. Now let's understand what this method is that we call longing, and then self-knowledge. Once again, longing arises from something outside of the human being. The human archetypal model is a closed system, complete in itself, without the intervention of a wholly new element, This divine impulse, described across traditions as an awakening from inner slumber, whether in Buddhism, Christianity, or elsewhere, there can be no true shift. There is always this decisive moment, the awakening, the sudden recognition of life as it truly is. We can also find it in our own modern culture, in films like The Matrix, which show this moment of rupture, of awakening, which, as we said, comes from a new sun, from a divine energy, from the brotherhood of life. And this energy, this new vitality, does not discriminate person from person. It reaches all of humanity. All human beings, without exception, are affected by it. What determines whether this transformative force continues to act is the individual's decision to pursue self-knowledge. To make it very clear, the longing generates restlessness, but it can be embraced and transformed into something higher, into noble feelings. And this longing loses its strength within us. If this longing is not acted upon, it loses its strength within us and ceases to be a true yearning. It is not corrupted by personal illusion or of self-deceptions. Rather, it is a fire that seeks to disrupt and inspire change. This spiritual impulse, as previously mentioned, generates a powerful force for transformation, becoming an intrinsic part of the individual. When a person welcomes and acts upon this impulse, it creates a field of influence around them, multiplying and spreading, much like a chain reaction in physics. The individual, reflecting this energy within their own consciousness, radiates it outward, amplifying and intensifying this transformative restlessness in others. We're speaking here of an inner restlessness, an internal battle. It does not generate external conflicts. It generates an inner conflict for a rupture. And what is this conflict? The unmasking. This is the great key to human renewal. Self-knowledge is generated organically. This disruptive force enters the human system. At first, it manifests itself as restlessness. In the second instant, it is what we usually call enlightenment. It illuminates the mental field. The macrocosmic house, the individual house of each one of us, the breathing field, this inner world, in addition to being restless, is illuminated. A light comes on in a room, and in that room, we can observe its corners, every corner of what we have inside. But we also have the challenge of not being enchanted by ourselves, like a narcissist who looks into his own mirror and admires himself. It is necessary to move forward, to go beyond this self-admiration of one's own history. Therefore, self-knowledge generates a powerful force of self-unmasking. This enlightenment stimulates and creates fresh insights, new perceptions that arise within our inner world, much like bubbles being burst and released. These insights reveal the many masks we wear throughout life to conceal our true self, highlighting that we are not a single unified person. This self-centeredness is marked by the multiplicity of these different manifestations. A path like this, a path that is like an arrow that follows a single path with a single target, transforms us into a single human being. We become just one in all situations of life. We are the same in every situation. The instant perception of oneself, I know as I am known, is a great power. From that moment on, we do not hide under the pretense of self-knowledge, which can easily become self-admiration, passion for oneself. No, we now use an objective observation of life, Life's experiences become the fundamental element of transformation. With each experience, a reflection of this enlightened inner life and a transformation of self-unmasking. If this process is carried out to its roots, the first stage of inner freedom is conquered. Because, friends, we are the jailer of our prison. No political, economic, life system, no culture has a greater power to imprison us than our conditioning. We are the ones who deceive ourselves. It is we, out of passion for our inner history, who lose this impulse, this essence that is the middle of the triangle. The fundamental longing, this anguish of the middle of the triangle, and we corrupt it with something that we sometimes even call self-knowledge. But that is not what we are dealing with here. We are talking here about something much more radical, self-knowledge as a definitive rupture for an inner freedom.